I am Alan with PhosphorusRecycle.com. Welcome back. Today's presentation is to show how the 646 bioremediation treatment for human sanitary waste apparatus is constructed and to explain its features. It produces fresh water from urine. It has the additive feature of recovering nitrogen and phosphorus from the nutrients and returning them to the agricultural cycle. That's good for the planet. It is named 646 for the last three numbers assigned to the patent by the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. US 8734-646 B1. It's also reported in US 9272-929 B1. 646 is a system for converting urine into potable water for drinking and use in a hand washing station. It may seem surprising, but urine is mostly water. The small percentage, perhaps 5% of nutrients, can easily be extracted by water plants such as various forms of macroalgae. We convert the human urine back into water and separate out the nutrients nature's way, just in a controlled situation and at a faster rate. What 646 does is to control the rate at which the conversion takes place. There are several chambers to the processor separated by a barrier. Each additional chamber of the apparatus removes nutrients. Finally, there is just the water in the last chamber, and it's removed for other uses, perhaps hand washing, watering plants, or even for cooking and drinking. It is fresh water at the end of the process. There are several tests you can perform to convince yourself. The apparatus you see is just like the one in the patent publication. This is a salesperson's sampler. It is in miniature and transparent to show the steps more clearly. The urine enters the reactants tank on the left. It flows through the first chamber, which contains a generous portion of the macroalgae. The fluid travels under and through a sand barrier to the second chamber, over the separating barrier, and repeat as often as necessary under another barrier and sand filter, then to the last chamber where it is nutrient-free. There are many standardized tests you can do on the water exiting the processor to convince yourself that it meets the chemical definition of fresh water. Almost routinely, most water testers do specific gravity and pH tests. We started with rainwater to charge the system. So doing the tests before and after tells us how we're doing. City water might have fluoride and chlorine in it. That would skew the results. It's better to start with rainwater. In the after test, there are measures of various chemicals routinely tested for by municipal water districts. And of course, you want to test for phosphorus, as capturing it and removing it for return to the agricultural cycle is the big feature of this processor. Phosphorus is a key to growth. You have phosphorus in every cell of your body. It is excess phosphorus that arrives in major doses that causes microalgae to grow too fast, then bloom, and then die off, excrete toxins into the water. There is a competition between macro and microalgae worth noting. Note in the pictures that the lake is full of macroalgae. Note around where the boats have been at the dock, the water looks pretty clear. When you have a healthy population of macroalgae, you get clear water. The microalgae is the one that causes the problems. There are only so many nutrients, and if the macroalgae thrive, there is not enough nutrient for the microalgae to cause problems. Back to the processor. The first chamber is where you can expect the maximum growth to happen. So remove about half the algae when needed to make room for more growth. You want to hit a quasi-stationary equilibrium where the amount of removals exactly matches the growth for that time period, perhaps a day in the summer. If your operation is big enough, the macroalgae, once removed from the processor, should be dried, shredded, pelletized, and bagged for transportation to farmers' fields, where it is an excellent soil enrichment used all around the world for many generations. Most people doing this just at their homes would work it into the soil of their own gardens. The phosphorus is the key. Have you ever noticed how many commercial fertilizers do not have it anymore? The second number of the NPK is the important one. Since the algae is loaded with the nutrients, especially nitrogen and phosphorus, it is of high quality. About 80% of the nutrients that can be recovered from our human waste products is in the urine, and look how easy it is to collect. I hope this brief introduction to the benefits of the apparatus has been informative. I hope you'll consider such a device for your own use and see the potential for using these on a much grander scale. I don't see why cities don't have a urine recovery program. It would keep the nutrients out of the waterways where it would otherwise go on a flush and forget system. 646 is an efficient, compact processor of urine to fresh water that uses no electricity. It operates on its own, only needing sunlight and your labor of inputting the urine and removing the macroalgae on a regular schedule.
Sanhedrin up there.
You deposit the urine, then remove algae once a day, and use the fresh water as you desire on your own demand schedule. I hope you'll consider this method of disposing of your waste. You might have to check with your local authorities to see if there's a problem. For those of you off-grid, this is perfect. You can see how useful the apparatus would be where there is a weather emergency. In Northern California right now, with fires destroying homes and businesses, the people gather where they can, such as shopping centers. They make temporary housing in tents and sleep in their cars. What do they do with their human waste? When the infrastructure is destroyed, you have to drop back to fundamentals. This apparatus can be set up on a temporary basis, used by thousands of people if necessary, then dismantled when the infrastructure is rebuilt. No harm to the environment. Note the pictures of one setting up with cinder block, a few bricks, and a sheet of plastic. For about half the world's population, this is a great improvement in what is their standard practice now. In conclusion, 646 provides a means of urine disposal wherein the water is recovered, nutrients are recycled back into the agricultural cycle. I think we can do a great deal more in using our resources wisely. Recovering the nitrogen and phosphorus from our waste means we can have a bio-sustainable planet. Who doesn't want that? It also eliminates those biological materials going into the local waterways and causing microalgae growth and toxin release during a bloom. There is no more flush and forget to leave it to your neighbor to clean up your mess. Thank you for your time and attention. I am Alan at phosphorusrecycle.com.